Before we begin, let me ask you something. What if evil already knows your name and trembles when you walk into a room? What if demons don't wait for rituals, Latin prayers, or holy water? What if they already know they've lost the moment you arrive? If stories like this grip you, real history, dark faith, and encounters that feel too disturbing to ignore, subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell, and comment below how far these videos are reaching. Your comments tell me whether these stories are crossing borders and finding the right people. Now listen closely. Saint Peter of Verona was not a mystic who searched for demons. He was something far more dangerous. He was a man who exposed lies. Born in 1205 in Verona, Italy, Peter entered a home already soaked in spiritual confusion. His parents were committed Cathars, members of a heretical movement that rejected the material world as evil and viewed the body as a prison. To modern ears, it sounds philosophical. To the medieval church, it was something else entirely, a doctrine believed to be seeded by demonic deception. From childhood, Peter was taught that the world was corrupt, that flesh was cursed, that truth was hidden, and only the initiated could see it. But even as a boy, something inside him resisted. He later wrote that when he heard the Catholic creed recited publicly, his chest tightened, his pulse raced, and an inexplicable fear mixed with relief washed over him. Truth frightened him, but lies suffocated him. This inner conflict marked him early. Teachers noticed that Peter would argue relentlessly, not emotionally, but with razor-sharp logic. He dissected ideas. He cornered falsehoods. And when he did, adults would fall silent, unsettled by how clearly a child could see through them. When Peter encountered the Dominicans as a young man, it felt less like conversion and more like awakening from a fever dream. He joined the order of preachers, devoting himself to truth spoken plainly, without ornament, without compromise. That was when the disturbances began. At first, they were subtle. People grew uneasy around him. Conversations ended abruptly. Dogs whimpered when he passed. During prayer, other friars reported a heaviness in the air whenever Peter prayed intensely, as if something unseen recoiled. Then came the confessions. The first recorded incident was dismissed as coincidence. A woman knelt to confess minor sins and suddenly froze. Her breathing slowed unnaturally. Her eyes fixed on Peter's face, not with fear, but recognition. Before Peter spoke a word, she whispered in a voice not her own, "Not you." The sound chilled everyone nearby. Peter did not recoil. He did not shout. He did not panic. He simply made the sign of the cross. The woman collapsed. When she awoke, she had no memory of what happened. But the thing that spoke through her never returned. This pattern repeated. Again and again, word spread quietly among clergy. When Peter arrives, something leaves. Demons didn't challenge him theatrically. They reacted instinctively, like insects exposed to light. Some screamed. Some fled. Others tried to hide deeper, only to be dragged into the open by a single sentence spoken calmly by a man who refused to be deceived. People began whispering that hell recognized his voice, and hell was afraid. Peter of Verona's most violent battles never involved raised voices. They happened in whispers, in the narrow wooden spaces of confessionals where no one else could see. Confession is supposed to be gentle, a place of release. But when Peter listened, the masks came off. People would kneel calmly, begin confessing routine sins, and then stop mid-sentence. Their eyes would glaze. Their posture would stiffen as if their bodies no longer belonged to them. Peter later wrote that demons hate confession more than exorcism, because confession is consent, and demons lose their grip the moment consent is withdrawn. When resistance appeared, Peter leaned in, not physically, but psychologically. He asked precise questions. He dismantled lies patiently. He forced clarity where confusion had lived for years. And clarity hurts. Witnesses recorded moments when penitents began sweating profusely in cold rooms, shaking violently, as if their own thoughts were attacking them. Voices emerged, mocking, cruel, intimate, revealing secrets Peter could not have known. "You know too much. You ruin everything. We were comfortable before you." Peter never argued with the voices. He ignored them. Instead, he spoke directly to the human soul beneath the chaos, reminding them of who they were, what they chose, and what they no longer had to carry. Sometimes that was enough. Other times, the reaction was explosive. People screamed, furniture rattled, candles blew out without wind. But the most disturbing detail repeated across testimonies was this. The demonic reactions often began before Peter spoke, as if whatever hid inside already knew his presence was fatal. At night, the attacks turned inward. Peter experienced crushing despair during prayer, thoughts not his own urging hopelessness, exhaustion, surrender. He felt watched constantly. He described sensations of being suffocated by ideas rather than hands. But he never asked God to remove the darkness. He asked for the strength to see clearly. And demons cannot survive clarity. There is a moment in every unseen war when one side realizes it has lost control. For demons, that moment did not arrive with thunder, fire, or dramatic failure. It arrived quietly. It arrived when Peter of Verona continued walking. For years, the darkness had tried everything. It tried confusion, filling minds with half-truths and intellectual pride. It tried fear, whispering despair during prayer, pressing hopelessness into Peter's thoughts like a weight on the chest. It tried distraction, tempting him to soften his words, to avoid confrontation, to let lies rest undisturbed. None of it worked. Peter did not argue with darkness. He ignored it, and nothing enrages demons more than being rendered irrelevant. Chroniclers note that the tone of demonic manifestations around Peter began to change. Early encounters were mocking, theatrical, almost playful. Later ones were sharp, desperate, and furious. Voices no longer laughed. They threatened. You will not finish. You walk too freely. You do not understand what you invite. Peter understood perfectly. He simply refused to stop. As an inquisitor, his role forced him into direct contact with communities saturated in deception. He listened patiently as people defended beliefs they barely understood. He dismantled arguments without humiliation, without cruelty. He exposed contradictions calmly, like a surgeon revealing infected tissue. And wherever the lies collapsed, something darker surfaced. Possession spiked in frequency wherever Peter preached. Some historians suggest this was coincidence. Eyewitnesses disagreed. They said it felt like pressure building beneath the surface, like something cornered. At night, Peter's inner battles intensified. He described thoughts that did not feel like thoughts at all, but insertions, foreign ideas arriving fully formed, urging exhaustion, isolation, surrender. He experienced moments where prayer felt hollow, where God felt distant, where silence pressed in unbearably. Yet Peter never interpreted this as abandonment. He interpreted it as resistance. And resistance, he believed, was proof of progress. The threats escalated. Some came through possessed penitents whose voices dropped into inhuman registers mid-confession, warning him plainly that his work would be stopped by force. Others came through human mouths, men whose eyes were cold, hollow, already surrendered internally. Peter acknowledged the danger openly. He made no effort to hide. He refused armed guards. He continued traveling on foot. Those close to him begged him to slow down, to retreat, to protect himself. Peter responded simply, "If truth retreats, lies advance." On April 6, 1252, Peter traveled near Como with a fellow Dominican. The road was unremarkable, quiet trees, dirt path, early spring air. Nothing about it felt significant. That is how violence prefers it. The attackers struck suddenly. No warning, no announcement. A blade crashed into Peter's skull with savage force. Witnesses later said the sound was sickening, bone meeting metal. Blood poured freely as Peter collapsed to the ground. And yet, he did not scream. He did not beg. He did not curse his killers. Instead, shaking, fading, slipping rapidly toward death, Peter did something no one expected. He dipped his fingers into his own blood, and he began to write. In the dirt, the creed, "I believe in God." Each letter was uneven, trembling, fading as his strength drained. It was not symbolic. It was defiant. The second blow ended his life. But witnesses testified to something chilling. The moment Peter died, the air changed. The suffocating pressure that had hung over the road lifted instantly. Some described it as relief, others as sudden silence, deep, absolute, unsettling silence. People nearby broke down without understanding why. Later reports confirmed something even stranger. Individuals suffering possession experienced sudden freedom at the very sight of Peter's murder, as if the darkness, having finally struck him down, had overreached, as if the act itself had exposed it. The death of Peter of Verona was meant to silence him. Instead, it amplified him. Within months, testimonies flooded in, not stories of legend, but first-hand accounts. Clergy, lay people, former skeptics, all describing the same pattern. Where Peter had walked, clarity remained. Where he had spoken, lies struggled to return. Where his name was invoked, disturbances ended. Peter was canonized in less than a year, one of the fastest in church history. Not because of politics, not because of exaggeration, because the evidence would not go away. Exorcists documented cases where demonic manifestations reacted violently to the mere mention of his name. Confessions ended abruptly. Oppression lifted suddenly. Nightmares ceased. Modern scholars often focus on ritual when discussing exorcism. Peter offers something more unsettling. He shows that demons rely less on power than on permission, less on strength than on confusion. Peter never negotiated with darkness. He clarified, and clarity is catastrophic for deception. Psychologically, Peter dismantled the structures demons depend on: fear, secrecy, fragmentation of identity. He restored coherence to fractured minds, leaving nothing for darkness to grip. This is why his legacy endures, not as a warrior, but as an exposer. So let me leave you with this. What parts of your thinking survive only in shadow? What fears dissolve when named? What lies lose power when exposed? Because if truth walks into the room, something always leaves. If this story reached you, if it unsettled you, comment below and tell me how far this video reached. Your engagement tells me these stories matter. And if you want more true, disturbing, historical encounters like this, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me. Because there are more stories, and some of them are darker than you think.